All right, well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. We're gonna go ahead and get this show on the road. My name is Dr. Margarita Hernandez, and I welcome you to tonight from Ann Arbor SPARK, our big celebration thing that we're doing tonight. This is part of the A2 Tech 360 event series, and we are very excited tonight to be presenting to you a very special and unique offering, an event, boot camp celebration. And the reason that it really is something really great and special is Spark is a phenomenal, it's a phenomenal machine. And it services a variety of people in our ecosystem. Some people that, we have clients, we have resources, we have mentors, we have collections of different people in our ecosystem, from big companies to middle stage startup companies who are just getting their beginnings and opening up their doors and offices to people. But also the most important piece is the fundamentals, the beginnings of where some of these businesses start. And these are people who maybe have an idea, they've seen and witnessed a problem. They have an idea on the back of a beverage napkin. Where do they go? How can they find resources to help their business idea grow? Is it a good idea? And this is especially a niche where boot camp, what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later here in a minute, can really help these people with. And our ecosystem is such a huge, diverse, and dynamic one that it has connection resources to U of M, New Enterprise Forum. We connect with a lot of different resources from MIHQ, mentors, and by using this ecosystem around ourselves, we bring this in to help the boot campers develop a very young idea so that they can stay the course, learn some new things, be more robust. And because we've been running this program now, this is our 36th actual cohort of what I'm going to be presenting to you today. It is something magical to be able to share just where they are very young and what does that look like. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start unpacking what is boot camp. Boot camp, while we are in our 36th cohort, is actually managed by a phenomenal person named Lee Gorman. She has been helping us teach, mentor, advise, but also, have some of the harder conversations with teams, how to be smarter about something, how to approach a business, how to mentor them. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Lee to join me here and kind of share a little bit more about what boot camp is and what are we celebrating today.
Thank you, Margarita.
Of course.
Welcome, everybody. Entrepreneur Boot Camp is Spark's program to help very early stage high-tech entrepreneurs, as Margarita mentioned. Boot Camp is based on the principles of lean startup that suggests determining whether a business is likely to be viable before investing a lot of time and money in it. This is done through a process of customer discovery where assumptions are validated early. Boot Camp teaches the methodology for this approach, and the teaching team helps each entrepreneurial team apply the methodology to their startup. Boot Camp consists of a mix of presentations to convey key concepts, coaching and feedback on pitches, and lots of customer discovery outside of class. One of the greatest benefits to campers are the mentors we select to help them think through their ideas as well as make connections for them. By the end of boot camp, the teams know the most appropriate next steps, whether it's to proceed with their business as envisioned, pivot to a new approach, or abandon the idea altogether and go back to the drawing board, where they'll be able to apply what they've learned to a new idea. Before we start the presentations, I'd like to give a shout out to the other teams in the cohort who worked hard to refine their business ideas, but weren't quite as far along as the teams you'll hear from tonight. We had A&M Solutions with Mohan Valabaneni, Antigrav with David Perner, Blank Stat with Daniel Thomas, Novaseas with Deepesh Desai, and Reaction Technologies with Brandon Martin. and we wish the best of luck to all of them. One of the things we spend a lot of time on in boot camp is pitching, not to sell anything, but to clearly articulate the customer and problem being addressed, the solution and unique value proposition. In the next hour, you'll hear that pitch from 4 of our teams, and they're actually competing for prizes. First prize is a $25,000 investment in their business in the form of a convertible note, and second prize is a $10,000 investment. Third prize, sponsored by Bodman Law, is $2,000 worth of legal services. Judges will determine these prizes based on the apparent investability of each business, how likely they think outside investors would be to invest. There will also be a People's Choice Award, so your opinion of their pitch counts. Be prepared to vote. Each presenter will have 5 minutes to pitch. Then there will be 5 minutes Q&A with questions from the judges only. After the last team, there will be a special guest speaker while the judges deliberate to determine the winners. I'll turn it back over to Margarita now to introduce the judges and the first team.
Thanks, Lee. All right. So tonight, judging for our startups, first we actually have Mike Flanagan, and following that will be Lindsay Klee and Raj Riswadkar. I'll let them introduce themselves, first starting with Mike.
Thanks, Margarita. So my name is Mike Flanagan. I'm Vice President of Capital Programs at SPARK. So I oversee the capital programs, all the programs at SPARK that handle funding for startups, which includes the pre-seed fund, which is where we get the money to award the prizes for boot camp. So I'm always honored to be here with you all, and thanks for including me again, Lee and Margarita, as a judge, and good luck to everybody tonight.
I'm Lindsay Klee. Thank you for including me in the judging panel tonight. I had the opportunity in December to participate as well in person. So this is an exciting, new, never tested by Lindsay before environment. I am very much a life science and med tech focused individual. I do some work in the healthcare space, and I'm part of the Michigan SBDC technology team. We work statewide advising and supporting our startup and entrepreneur ecosystem. I started my career in drug discovery and worked in finance with research development and different types of small and large entities and manufacturers, and do a range of things with my private consultancy intent as far as regulatory submissions and reimbursement work goes. So I'm happy to be here and excited to see what you all have been working on.
I guess I'm next. So I'm Raj Riswadkar. I'm a double engineer who lost his way, got an MBA, went to the dark side, been involved in growing 3 or 4 multi-billion-dollar companies, also involved and co-founded 4 startups. And over the past 2 years in the Detroit area, I've been involved in 20 different startups as advisor, as a coach, mentor. I'm on the board of a couple of life science companies. I'm also an angel investor. I'm really, really excited to be here and listen to you guys pitch. I want to thank Margarita and Lee for picking me. And just to give you a clue, I'm going to use the 3 T's to judge the winners, which is how you tell your story, how you've got traction, the second T, and the third T is the team. What's your team like? And I'm going to use my favorite drink to judge this, which is guilty. Good luck.
Thank you, Raj, for that. And thank you, the rest of Lindsay and Mike, for sharing and introducing yourselves. All right, so let's get started. First, I actually just wanted to mention each startup will have 5 minutes to pitch once they get on the platform. After that, they will stop screen sharing and we will go into questions from our judges. Okay, We have 5 minutes, and what I will do is at the last 1 minute, I will make a comment, 1 minute, and then we'll go from there. And I'll cut you off at 5 minutes. All right, so here we go. At first, coming up is Poisera with the founder, Mariana Carpola. I actually met her oh goodness, it was around this time last year. Big-eyed, bushy-tailed. She had actually been through our systems before, so this was not something foreign to her, but she was very serious about helping moms cultivate and become more resilient through pregnancy and postpartum. And she has some very interesting artificial intelligence related things going on, and we are very excited to have her today. So without further ado, let's welcome Mariana.
Hello, my name is Mariana Carpola, and I'm the founder and CEO of Poisera. You don't have to be a mother to know that the transition into motherhood is hard. Sleepless nights, mom guilt, self-doubt, and other stressors create the perfect storm for mental health distress. In fact, 1 in 5 women will develop a mental health disorder during pregnancy or postpartum. What's tragic is that these diseases most moms do not receive treatment for these diseases, leading to long-term health consequences for both mother and child, and costing the US health economy $14 billion a year. There are 3 main reasons why women do not receive treatment. First, these diseases are incredibly difficult to self-diagnose. Second, there's a strong stigma, mental health stigma, preventing moms from sharing their struggles with loved ones or health providers. And finally, even when diagnosed, finding time for treatment can be a challenge when you're also juggling a career and childcare. We have developed an AI-powered chatbot to deliver the right type of support at the right time for each mom. Research has shown that humans are more honest with a chatbot than they even are with a trusted therapist. Through ongoing conversations, we're able to learn not only what moms are worried about, but their specific life circumstances. In turn, our machine learning algorithms can then provide each mom with the mental health support she needs. This will allow us to diagnose moms when they're at risk for mental health distress. It can help us normalize challenges in motherhood, allowing them to share those challenging feelings they're experiencing. And finally, we can provide moms with access to treatment directly through the app. 10 months ago, we launched our beta, and we've achieved incredible product market fit. Poisera super users check in with Poisera 2 to 3 times a week, and they continue to do so today. Interviews with our users we've learned that they love the Poisera experience. They've shared that they truly feel as if Poisera understands them and is providing them the support they're looking for. This user engagement will allow us to extend our customer lifetime value and ensure that moms share Poisera with their network of other moms. We think of our business model in 2 phases. To start, we're going to sell Poisera directly to moms for an annual subscription for $100. This will allow us to optimize our machine learning algorithms and user engagement. Over time, we'll be able to prove that Poisera is more effective than the standard care practices, which will allow us to then pursue B2B licensing opportunities with health insurers, health systems, and employers. This will allow us Poisera to reach a broader audience and reach scale faster. The market opportunity for Poisera is big. There are 3.8 million pregnant moms each year. We estimate our beachhead market to be $91 million, which is focused on pregnant moms with a bachelor's degree who rely on social media for advice. What's particularly exciting for Poisera is that we can grow with our users. For better or for worse, motherhood never becomes easier. And so we can continue to support moms as their children move into toddlerhood, preschool, all the way through their teenage years. Poisera is not the first app to enter the parenting app market. There are existing players such as Baby Center, Glow, and Ovia Health, who've grown to generate tens of millions of dollars in revenue. However, we've learned through interviews that these companies fall short in providing the personalized advice that moms are looking for. These other companies provide one-size-fits-all solutions, which can feel either irrelevant or at worst actually trigger mental health distress. We have an incredible team. I have 15 years of experience in marketing, 5 of which have been in health tech, and I have experience managing multidisciplinary teams. Our CTO, David Groom, has 20 years as a full stack developer, and he's been a CTO for a mobile app startup in the past. And finally, Caitlin Koska, our content strategy lead, is an expert in mental health education. We know that motherhood will always be hard. However, with Poisera, we hope that no mother feels alone in pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. All right, we'll go ahead and open up for the next 5 minutes for judges to ask any questions. And Mariana, there you go. Here we go.
I guess I can go first. Mariana, great job. Nice pitch.
Thanks.
So I'm just curious about, your timing with the beta and how you see that playing out in terms of converting, just regular consumer customers, and then what the timeline after that would be to start launching with B2B licenses. How long do you think it'll take to prove out with the B2C model?
Yeah, so actually we're we're applying for an SBIR grant that will really fund that development phase, specifically around the machine learning technology. And so all in all, I think it would be a 1.5 to 2 year process. So we're expecting that we could pursue those B2B relationships in 2023.
I'll ask the next question, Mariana. Really, again, good pitch, loved it. What are your typical customer acquisition costs? And do you have any international plans once you get traction here?
Excellent questions. So first, we have started doing some willingness to pay testing. Our go-to-market strategy is really focused on digital advertising, social media, and referral marketing, as well as content marketing. And so in these initial tests, we've actually achieved an $11 customer acquisition cost. And this is largely because we are narrowly focusing our digital advertising on keywords for topics moms are already Googling. So we can be really efficient there. In terms of an international expansion, I think absolutely. There's these rates have actually very little correlation with any other socioeconomic indicators. And so the impact we can create in the US is just as vast, here as in Europe, as in sub-Saharan Africa. So that would be an exciting path to pursue.
Okay, that was a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed hearing it. And I'd like to follow up for maybe a demo or something down the road offline.
Sure.
That would be cool. What, your problem was really well stated. I was sucked into the presentation right off the bat, which was phenomenal. So I kind of have 2 questions. One is, could you talk a little bit more about the competition, particularly in the digital app space? And then 2, what have you explored any initial conversations with potential licensees in the B2B realm?
Sure. I'll answer the second question first, just because that's a little quicker. I have not had any formal conversations yet. However, my previous role at a health tech startup, I was in a customer acquisition or kind of customer success role, working with these types of clients and customers. So through that experience, I'm fairly familiar with what types of products they're looking for, what they would be looking for in a pilot study, and that sort of thing. And so then going back to the competition, yeah, most of the existing kind of parenting pregnancy apps are very focused on the medical side of things and don't, they just track when the baby's due date is or birthday, but don't get into any more kind of granular detail, and definitely don't get into the mental health side of things. And then there's actually a burgeoning kind of world of e-courses helping parents learn how to put their baby to sleep and that type of thing. But these are actually remarkably expensive, anywhere from $100 to even $500 for a video course, where it's, again, just the same content for every single user. And so I think that's the differentiation that we're trying to provide, is that no motherhood experience is the same, nor should the advice that's offered to those women be the same. And so the machine learning allows us to provide that tailored experience.
Cool. Very cool.
Thanks.
Do we have time for a couple of quick follow-ups? Great. Mariana, just following up, can you talk about your AI data set? How many, where you've based it from? And somebody, I wasn't sure did I hear you correctly? It was $100 a year subscription?
Yes. So $9 a month. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so the AI data set is something that we have to develop over time. So we're already using simple things like sentiment analysis, natural language processing to determine mood. However, most of it is using structured data to determine, okay, does this mom work? Does she not work? Does she have a partner, not have a partner? And, for a long time, having a dumb model kind of predetermine what the answers are, but over time we can make that more refined. But I mean, already we have, in the thousands of rows of data from our existing users. So we're growing the data set quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So do we have another second there, Margarita, or?
I think we should actually close up. I'm
Okay.
going to go ahead and thank you so much, Mariana. That was an awesome presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I will let Lee actually continue from here and introduce the next startup.
Our next team is Chime, represented by Quinn Favre. I first met the team when they came to Spark this past January and was instantly impressed by their energy and enthusiasm. I knew boot camp would be perfect for them, and they certainly met my expectations. Eagerly looking for advice, doing customer discovery, and adjusting the business as they learned. By halfway through camp, they actually started generating revenue and are continuing to grow. Let's hear now from Quinn Favre.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for the kind introduction. Judges, before we get into the pitch, thank you again for being here, and thank you for taking the time, as well as everyone out in the audience. Let me share my screen really quick and pull up the slide deck, and then we will dive in. So just to confirm, can everyone see that front page? Awesome. Let's kick it off then. So I'm sure everyone on this call has heard the stat that over 50% of restaurants are closing because of the pandemic. However, this isn't true. It's not because of the pandemic, actually. These restaurants would have inevitably shut their doors within 2 to 3 years due to an overarching industry failure. The F&B space was never profitable, and COVID is only serving as a catalyst to its reformation. Back up all the way back to September, our team of 4, myself, Dom, Julia, and Eric, met while completing a consulting engagement for a local restaurant on South University. Each of us had very diverse backgrounds, from tech to product to marketing and sales, so it was automatically a perfect match. During this engagement, we identified several core problems plaguing the space as we conducted over 100 customer interviews with restaurants not only in Ann Arbor or suppliers in Ann Arbor, but across the country. Combined with our team's passion for working in food and beverage, dating all the way back to my high school days as a waiter and Julia's time as a waitress, we have both the nitty-gritty as well as the high-level experience needed to understand the complexity of the problems facing this industry. And trust me, there are quite a few problems facing this industry. Specifically, on the customer side, there's the long-term issue of waiting and a non-customizable experience, causing customers to not visit dine-in restaurants frequently. On the restaurant side, there's similarly a long-term issue of low profitability, influenced by a few key driving factors, a couple of which being low table turnover rates, dwindling revenue, as well as restaurants missing reorders. So if you want that dessert or that second drink while you're at the bar or the restaurant, over 90% of those are missed, causing restaurants to take a massive hit to revenue. And that's where Chime comes in. Chime is a QR code-based mobile ordering solution. Oops, sorry. Chime is a QR code-based mobile ordering solution, which brings the dine-in experience into the hands of the customers while increasing overall profits for restaurants through affecting table turnover rates, order value, and demand. We operate on a month-to-month subscription model, where our real value, though, comes from data. We utilize machine learning to build out customer profiles and personalize promotions, increasing our long-term value through aggregated data sets. However, our main goal with this product is to help turn around the restaurant industry. We want our impact to dive deep and spread wide through this space and really take over the US market. Specifically, the 600,000 restaurants located within this $1 trillion market. Our niche out of this 600,000, though, is non-corporate, non-fast food, sit-down restaurants, reducing that number to somewhere around 350 to 400,000. However, we reduce this even further. We target our specific customers based on their end user. Traditionally, we look for people whose end users tend to be urban, a little bit younger, take Austin, Boston, or even Ann Arbor. Now, with such an appealing market like this, you may be wondering about the competitors, and there are certainly many, but we have unique differentiators which set us apart from each of these competitors. A couple competitors in this space being Presto, SnackPass, as well as QR code menus. And what I mean by that is if you've gone to a restaurant and scanned a QR code and it's brought you up to a PDF menu, that's what I'm referring to. Each of these hold a chunk of the market and have some type of online ordering solution. However, our platform is different as we emphasize the UX and are not as rigid for restaurants. We learned quickly that in food and beverage, there's no one size fits all, and our solution accounts for this. We're able to adapt to any restaurant point of sale system, any workflow, and our solution is so adaptable without changing the fundamental product itself that it's usable in almost any restaurant situation. So now that you know a little bit more about the space, the competitors, the market, let me transition back to talking about Chime again, specifically with our current traction.
Just a minute left, Quinn.
Thank you. This past summer, we've hired engineers and sales reps. We currently have a $40,000 deal towards the end of our pipeline, as well as, most importantly, we've launched a small, private, paid beta with 5 customers throughout the country to see if this really is a valid solution. And through this paid beta, we've seen a couple key stats. We've seen a 10% boost in revenue, a 63% reduction in time to order, as well as on the customer side, a 4.8 out of 5-star rating. Now for us, this is incredible. We have the validation we are looking for, and now is the time when we need to scale this idea. We need money today, and we're currently actually raising rounds outside of this in order to bring on more sales representatives, in order to increase our marketing efforts, and launch a geographic rollout strategy to urban cities, all geared towards a large and deep market penetration rate.
That's it, Quinn. You're done.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, I guess I can jump in. Nice job, Quinn. Thanks for your pitch. So I guess I'm curious because I've heard of some other solutions on the market, as you alluded to, and I'm just curious, your thoughts on, how far along are they? Do you know how much any of those competitors have raised? And then in terms of your differentiation, how do you think that is going to compare? And will you be able to outcompete, I guess, these other players that are already in the market?
Great question. There's quite a couple questions embedded in that. First and foremost, you're absolutely right. There are hundreds of competitors in this space. 99% of them only have 5 customers and tend to stay that way. They started off as customized software solutions and they had the intention of scaling, but they realized that food and beverage industry is not easy to scale within. However, there are a couple notable competitors, like I mentioned earlier, SnackPass, Toast, Squarespace, etc. Each of these are large legacy companies with millions of dollars in funding. They have large customer bases. But that being said, they have a lot of negatives. For example, the Toast solution can only work with Toast POS systems. We've talked with about 7 customers in the last 2 weeks who aren't happy with it because it's not customizable. It doesn't fit their needs. Currently, it's just the only solution that works with their system. So we go above this and we go above all several different features on other competitors. and are able to implement our UX and our flow within any POS system. So that's really the secret sauce we have going here. Hopefully that answered your question. If I left any other parts unaddressed, please let me know.
So I'll chime in on the back of Mike. Here's an easy one. Tell us about your team.
Our team is awesome. It's not only my best friends, but we have Eric. Eric's our CTO. He has production level experience in technology with a specialization in machine learning. Julia has extensive experience in product. She serves as our CPO, so taking care of designs, user flows, etc. And then myself and Dominic serve in a sales capacity and a marketing capacity. So anything that falls through the cracks or needs to be done with growth, we'll take care of that. That's our core founding team. Outside of that, we have 2 engineers on board, as well as a full-time sales representative.
Got it. Thank you. Nice pitch, by the way. Tell me, when do you expect to get traction, and what is your timeline to success as you define it?
So that is a great question. We actually started rolling out our promotions last week, and this week we already have 7 qualified leads in the door who we're working with, who are in our pipeline. So we're really excited with that traction, and from here it only goes up on an exponential curve. In terms of specific benchmarks, by the end of this quarter, we hope to have an additional 50 restaurants on. Next year, as a collective, we hope to bring on close to 2,000, and then from there continue down the pipeline. In terms of success, though, we define that as once we have enough data to actually create out those aggregate data sets, where that's when the industry moving solution that we're really imagining comes in.
Thank you. And last question, what do you charge for the service? If I missed it, I apologize.
Nope, so I intentionally didn't state it. It does vary depending on the restaurant and the restaurant size. Typically, though, it's somewhere between $100 to $200-ish per location per month.
Sorry, per what?
Per location per month.
Thank you.
And along those lines, so how many months have you done the paid betas at this point, and what's the total revenue to date?
So we have launched our paid betas back in July, I believe it was mid-July. So our total revenue is low. We have, give or take, a monthly recurring revenue of about $1,000 up until then. Starting this month, though, we secured a couple large contracts, and we're already around the 2,500 point. And like I mentioned, we have several leads towards the end of our pipeline. So by the end of September/mid-October, we're hoping to have that monthly recurring revenue up towards the 4 or 5 number, and as you know, continuing to grow there.
Great. One kind of additional question. If you were explaining this to somebody who's a customer thinking of going to a restaurant, how do you, or thinking of ordering, how do you simply, what is the most simplistic way you have to explain to them why they should use it?
Great question.
Why they should interface with this?
And that question,
restaurant goer.
Yep, agreed. And that's one of the biggest challenges we face, right? There's 2 very distinct customers and users that we're targeting, both the restaurant themselves as well as the patrons. So it's 2 whole communication styles that we have to adapt to. To answer your question directly, they're incentivized to use this because they're able to receive customized promotions, a better user experience. I'm sure everyone here has sat at a restaurant and looked around looking for their waiter or waitress, needing the bill to leave, wanting to order that second set of chicken tenders, whatever it is. With Chime, we're able to bring this to the customer, make it an instantaneous society. With the click of a button, they can request a waiter or waitress, they can request the bill, they can reorder, they can add on appetizers or desserts, etc. So it really helps them by taking away that inconvenience of waiting or not having the courage necessarily to flag down a staff member.
Thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have right now.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Quinn. It was great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the next team, and that's Elise Magnets. So it is actually a really big pleasure to introduce Amelia, or I started calling him soon after, and Vaden. They came to me actually around this time last year as well. They were humble, willing to learn, and when they proposed to me their business idea, I was refreshingly surprised. These were students of U of M who were, even before boot camp, generating revenue. And they wanted boot camp because they were like, there's other things that we want to do. We want to make sure to do it right. So it was just refreshing to see this new idea and with these two awesome students just rocking it already. But Elise Magnets is a B2B SaaS product that bridges the gap between physical and digital leasing experience by bringing the in-person touring experience to a very different real life experience. And I'll let them take it over from here.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to meet all you judges. Thank you for taking the time. Really excited to be pitching Magnets today. Just let me know, Margarita, when I can get started. Good to go. Awesome. Every apartment manager in the US today is facing a problem. What's happening with the fall of brick and mortar due to the rise of e-commerce is now happening to the apartment leasing process, and COVID is a huge driver. As a result, virtual leasing is not only here now, it's here to stay. And property managers have failed to sell effectively in a near 100% virtual environment. Elise Magnets is a property tech solution that's already empowering property managers in almost 20 states by bridging the gap between the physical and digital leasing experience and by bringing the in-person tour experience live on each apartment website. Over the past 4 years, going through the apartment search ourselves with me and Amelia, we've seen the leasing process change dramatically, from nearly all in person to almost entirely online. And with that transition has brought many new problems and frustrations that we've experienced firsthand. And now we'd like to tell you what the 3 biggest problems are. When you're online, there is no leasing consultant that can give you a tour of an apartment at 2 a.m. or even help you schedule an in-person tour in less than 48 hours. There is no leasing consultant online that can answer your question about whether you can bring your golden retriever Teddy to the apartment or your question about how much it costs to park your beloved Toyota Prius. Property managers realize this, and sometimes they want to provide more content online. But because these websites are often run by agencies or third-party developers, updating your virtual leasing experience becomes very difficult. Ultimately, this leads down to a lackluster digital customer experience that fails to convert 98 out of every 100 website visitors that would otherwise turn into a lead or tour that you're paying for. Now, that was okay when some leads were able to discover you in person, but now that your web traffic is your #1 lead source, every % of that conversion matters. And that's why we built Lisa, the first personalized video leasing consultant that can activate any website visitor, paid or organic, into more leads, more tours, and more leases straight from your website. Now we do that in 4 key ways. #1, we are the most eye-catching personal greeting when a visitor comes to the site. This isn't just any random annoying chatbot or pop-up that we're talking about. This is a tool that makes you feel like you're in person, and it gets 1 out of every 3 visitors to engage with our tour, which is double the nearest competitor. Additionally, we deliver everything on demand. When you're ready to tour the property, you can see any amenity or any floor plan for as long or as little as you want. If you don't want to see the 1 bedroom, you don't have to stay there seeing the 1 bedroom. With our tour, you are in control. And if you're ever ready to visit the apartment in person, we book that appointment in minutes instead of days. And when you're ready to turn into a lead, you're not just turning into any ordinary lead with a basic phone number and email. We track every action, floor plan, and every amenity you click, which helps arm the leasing agents of our clients with information about you when you come in so they can close each and every lead faster. Now, this is just scratching the surface of what Lisa can truly do, and I'd be happy to go into more detail during Q&A. Now, as far as our product validation goes, we have some exciting stats. We've A/B tested our conversion rates against our biggest competitors, and we know our product delivers twice the amount of virtual tours from the same web traffic compared to the biggest virtual tour player, Matterport, and the industry standard tour scheduling software, which is called RentGrata. Now, with this in mind, the traffic coming through Elise Magnets actually generates nearly 2 extra leases per month. And if you do the math, that's an extra $150,000 to $200,000 in leases every 6 months. But our most important product validation goes beyond these product stats. Trust is something that is incredibly hard to build in the real estate industry. But despite being in the market only 10 months, we're excited to say that we're working with 16 property management companies, many of whom have granted us multiple properties. Now, this is not normal, but in a good way. It's not normal to have true industry insiders in student housing or multifamily, like the former CEO of the largest property software company, Resman, or the former president of Rent.com, and on and on. These people have voluntarily joined our team of advisors to help us find more customers. But to us, these are just additional signals that our product's timing in the market is just right. And that's a good thing because this market is also pretty darn large. We know there's nearly 2 million apartments in the US that have a substantial marketing budget that we can obtain. And this doesn't even include the parallel markets we know we're a great fit for, including senior living, hospitality, and many more. Over the next few months, we expect to raise an angel round so we can convert current part-time contributors to full-time members of our team. Now, apart from the full-time members of me and Amelia, who are both University of Michigan students, this includes our industry insiders and some of our team members, like our CTO, who's a former Google APM and Harvard CS student. Additionally, we have two very large multifamily customers in the pipeline who want to take one feature of ours and deploy across their entire portfolio. And those two deals will help triple our 5.2 monthly revenue almost immediately. However, this will require more development time that we have access to at the moment, which is why this capital from Spark will be so invaluable. Last but not least, we want to grow within our existing portfolio of clients and launch a portion of our product for free to launch a national grassroots marketing campaign in early 2021 to permanently cement us as leaders in the virtual customer experience in multifamily. Although we've had this traction so far, we can't wait to see where we go in the future, and all we need is the team to do it. Thank you guys, and happy to take any questions here.
Great, thank you.
Great job. That was a really comprehensive overview. I'm wondering, the 1.8 leases per month, I'm not super familiar with this space or property management, but is that considered significant by property management companies, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lindsay. So basically, like, whenever any marketing product is pitching to these apartments, the one thing that they can never do is actually attribute the number of leases that they guarantee, because any apartment can always argue that there were multiple touch points in the process, right? You can think anything from a website to word of mouth to something else. So actually the way apartments like looking at it, they don't like when people actually attribute leases. But what we've done, that leases number that you're seeing, we've just compared that to our closest competitors. So that's not something we pitch to our clients. That's just something that we've A/B tested against competitors that, for example, some of our clients have used multiple products at once, and we'll A/B test against them to see how it pans out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Did you say this is a SaaS product that you sell to the leasing companies or the property managers?
Correct. So basically, it's a monthly SaaS model, and we didn't mention how much we charge, but basically the average price we charge right now is $250 a month, and we charge to these our bread and butter customer right now is the medium to large property management companies, and we sell to their decision makers, which is usually the corporate marketing manager, and sometimes we'll get a champion of like a local property manager that will like go up the chain and try to convince them, but usually it's the corporate marketing manager.
Gotcha. And how big is that market, and how many property management companies in that range are there that you're targeting?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question, and I'll relate that back to what we're doing right now. So basically, our strategy right now is we want to land contracts with these large umbrella companies. One thing that's special about property management is that they are these really large monopolized companies in both student housing and multifamily. Now, we've been lucky. We essentially right now have contracts with 4 of the top 20 student housing managers in the country. And over the past 2 months, we've been testing with them at several of their properties. And if they like what we're doing at their 3 or 4 properties, we have these meetings coming up where we're going to share our results to them. They're going to want to bring us on to the next 200 and 300 properties that they own across the country. So that's kind of how in student housing, it's much more monopolized. In multifamily, which multifamily, I just mean think apartment in any city. Those apartments are much more decentralized, less monopolized, but there's still a lot of large companies there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and did you say it's the monthly price you said is like $250 per month? Is that per property or per company?
Per website.
Per website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll jump on the back of that. Warren, great presentation. Really liked it. Yes, 2 questions. One is, how do you get the property? You said there's, the way I understood it, Lisa goes around and walks me through the property. How do you get that property floor plan and recording into your system? Question number 1. How does that impact your profitability? Question number 2, because that's expensive to go do. And third question is, why is this so hard to copy by the competition?
And if it's okay, I'll answer those questions in order. So first question is basically implementation, right? How do we actually get this video up and running? And that's actually a great obstacle you bring up, because that's an obstacle we're trying to solve right now. So basically we have 2 different options. One is we will essentially have a professional videography team go in, and they will pay us one-time setup fee for us to go in and film the property professionally. That's one option. The second option is for them to self-film the tours. And this is actually where we see the majority of clients right now choosing. What they'll do is either take any iPhone, any Android, think any smartphone, and they'll go around their property and film around, right? Now, one thing we've started doing is for every new client we're getting right now, we send them a professional audio microphone so that we can incentivize them to increase the quality. That's just one example, but what we're trying to do, Raj, and I think like what we see is some properties we work with have very motivated teams that want to get it done as soon as possible. Some feel forced by their parent companies that, hey, you know, what's going on? Like they're just forcing this product down and I'll have to film this myself and I have to find the time and all of this. They're too busy. So basically our number one goal is to incentivize these local teams. Even though they're not the decision makers, they're the ones who end up championing the quality of our product and will affect the results that we end up getting. So what we're trying to do is even examples like starting contests with these parent companies. We'll do like a video tour contest. Who can create the best video tour within the whole portfolio? Sorry, second question, profitability. So hopefully that answered your question. There's some tactics that we'll do for contests that'll essentially will take into account for the cost of onboarding a customer. But we always make sure that at least it doesn't go over the first month cost. And then the last thing, why is this so hard to copy, right? That's a great question. And I think one of the biggest things that we're doing, Raj, is we are bringing this to an industry that hasn't seen anything like this before, right? If you go to e-commerce, you know, you'll see millions of chatbots, millions of different things. And even in the apartment space, there are hundreds of chatbots, hundreds of different things like that. What we're essentially doing is bringing the personal part that no one has done before. Now, other big
that's all we have time for. Sorry.
Okay, apologies.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and with that, I would like to introduce our last presenter is Daryl Staveness of Exoplex. He has one of the most esoteric products I've seen in boot camp, since few of us are that familiar with ag tech or agriculture technology. But he does a great job explaining the importance of the problem it solves. Throughout boot camp, Daryl has been so methodical about following the process, and he asks great questions. He goes out and chases down leads, and he's been rewarded with a coveted acceptance to the Hatch Accelerator, which I'm sure is going to help take him to success. Please welcome Daryl.
Sorry. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Thank you, Lee, for that kind introduction. Very happy to be here, and thank you, judges, for taking the time. As mentioned, my name is Daryl Staveness. I'm the founder of Exoplex. Exoplex is a diagnostics company working in the agricultural sector, and we're developing new systems to detect what's known as the invisible threat in the livestock industry. This phrase refers to mycotoxins. These toxins can be found as contaminants in grain and animal feed, and they pose a significant threat to the health and productivity of livestock animals if they're allowed to track through the feed production chain. Now, there are existing strategies to detect these technologies. In fact, mycotoxin detection is a billion-dollar industry in and of itself. But these existing strategies are simply too slow and too expensive to fully meet the needs of the industry, and are really viewed as a bottleneck in this process of converting grain into animal feed and ultimately into livestock production. These limitations stem from the fact that these methods rely on older technologies that were simply adapted to be good enough at mycotoxin detection. They weren't necessarily created or designed with the specific challenges of this problem in mind. And that's where the Exoplex solution is differentiated. Our proprietary diagnostic technology uses cutting-edge photochemistry that is specifically tuned to the properties of these toxins, and is being built as that faster, cheaper, more reliable solution that this market has been waiting for. Our technology uses more rapid data collection techniques, so we expect to be able to generate test results for our customers at least 5 times faster than our competitors. And we're also using simple commodity chemicals to generate these diagnostic signals, which will ultimately allow us to compete on price point as well. And unlike anything on the market today, our technology is suited to both business models within this industry. There's the off-site detection service model, where users send in samples and they get data back. We'll be launching the first version of this in about a month. And then there's the point of source detection system model, where users are collecting the data themselves and we're generating recurring revenue by selling single-use test kits. Our first version of this will be launched in spring of 2021. Our go-to-market strategy will be focused on the feed production industry, specifically on the earlier stages. The grain processing stages are our beachhead customer. Feed mills are a good representative example of this, and with 6,000 active feed mills in the US alone, we estimate that the domestic market for this particular customer base is worth over $50 million a year. But obviously we have our sights set beyond the borders of the US. As Lee mentioned, we have gotten a pre-seed investment from Hatch, which is a global aquaculture accelerator program. Hatch has an entire section of its portfolio dedicated to innovation in feed and nutrition. And as a result, they've developed extensive connections with many of the major global players in the feed community, not only in aquaculture, but also other livestock industries. And it's those contacts that have been and will continue to be invaluable in setting up connections to potential large-scale customers, as well as even potential downstream partners. Excuse me. And one thing with these early connections is, all of these major players are really ready and waiting for this next generation of mycotoxin detection technologies to come out. I think this is exactly why Hatch brought me into the fold as the first solo founder that was accepted into their program, this being their 4th cohort. I actually started Exoplex after over a decade in the academic research track. I have a PhD in chemistry from Stanford, as well as an agricultural research background. But it was this company concept that made me deviate from that path and make that leap into entrepreneurship, because I, for one, fully believe that these existing detection technologies are not up to the task that this industry needs them to serve. And because, with my unique combination of research backgrounds, I feel like I have a real opportunity to provide a truly first-in-class product and first-in-class solution to this global challenge. And that is exactly what Exoplex is set to achieve. We are looking to build our team, so for anyone in the audience, please check out the job descriptions on our website and contact me if you're interested. And lastly, I just want to thank Ann Arbor SPARK and the bootcamp team for all they've done, and thank you for your time.
Great presentation. Really enjoyed hearing it. What's the amount, and I might have just missed this, of the Hatch pre-seed investment?
It was $130K and a convertible loan note.
Okay. And then have you looked at mycotoxin detection in kind of comparing urban and rural environments and what the impact of that is at all?
I guess we're explicitly focusing on the agricultural side of things to start. So this is something that in the developing world doesn't trace into the human food chain too much. There are strategies in place to eliminate that potential. There are, in the agricultural sector, very big differences between different types of livestock and different types of grain inputs. And I think that's actually one of the advantages of our technology is we're trying to develop it such that it operates within all of these potential feed inputs as well as the finished feeds. And that will be a really, it's a really key part of why we think we have an advantage over these existing technologies.
So it's sort of just a strategy of start at the source or the origin of the product, and then, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So Daryl, just a good presentation. I'm curious to learn about your IP and this. Is it a device? Is it you say photochemistry? So I'm just kind of curious, what is the solution? And what's the cost point? Have any sense? How are you positioned against your competition? So on and so forth.
Yeah, great questions. I'll start with the IP side of things. Right now, it's all trade secret. I've done all the due diligence to make me confident that there's nothing else anywhere close to it. So we decided to keep it in-house for a little bit longer. But we're gearing up to file our first provisionals here in about a month or two. And then in terms of the actual entity, so it's a little bit different for the two models. For the point of source model, or sorry, for the offsite model, it's all in lab using kind of traditional lab-based equipment. And then, it'll be the same model where I'm just returning data to the user. For the point of source model, there is a hardware software component to this. So there's the diagnostic technology, that's an invention. And then there's a separate invention for the kind of portable hardware and software spectroscopy. And that also, at least that also will be something that we're looking to cover in our provisionals. And then in terms of the price point question, I think for the offsite model, we will be looking to maintain close to the current standard, which is around $100 per sample. But instead of the 5 to 14 day lag time and data return, we're going to be guaranteeing a 24-hour data return on that side of things. Largely enabled because we can do more samples per day than the existing strategies. And then for the point of source model, that's one thing where the hardware, or the initial capital cost of the hardware will be about 10 times lower than what the current state of art is. And then the tests kits themselves, we haven't set the price point on those yet. That's still in development, but I believe we'll be able to keep that price point down relative to some of the competitors. And more importantly, because our test actually can identify more than one toxin per test, the cost per toxin will go down. So I think that'll be kind of key to our market penetration.
Can you give us a sense of what the current competitor price is for the equipment and what you think yours will range in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So the current point of source detection models, the upfront capital cost for the hardware is anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000. So I'll be shooting, like I said, to be about tenfold that, from 200 to 500. Mm-hmm. And then the cost per test for today's systems can range, I guess $10 per test is a good ballpark figure. That's where most of them lie. And I think we can push that a little bit lower. But as I mentioned, we will be detecting more than one toxin per test. So even if we end up having to price at that same $10 per test point, they'll at least be getting more data and more feedback per test. So it'll still be ultimately a cost savings.
And what do you think will be the proportion of, as you grow, the on-site customer versus the one that wants to do the lab test, and what's the profile of those? Is it the smaller ones that just want to send it to the lab and be done with it and not have to buy the equipment, versus larger? Is that how that works, and how does that play into your business model and your financials over time?
Yeah, great question. It's not necessarily size, it's more where in the feed production chain is the, based on the different preference for offsite versus point of source. Right now, the point of source is really heavily geared towards mills and, grain elevators, things of that nature. It's not really seen anywhere downstream because of the limitations of the technology. So that, in the fullness of time, will be the largest portion of the business. I think to start, because we'll be launching the offsite a little bit earlier, and we have some close connections with some local and regional feed producers. It's the feed formulation teams that really rely on that quick turnaround for the offsite detection, as well as nutritionists and veterinarians that are directly working with livestock producers. So that, to start, with those engagements with feed producers will be kind of the biggest chunk, and then eventually, as the point of source kind of raises up, that'll ultimately take over.
Thank you so much, Daryl. That's all the questions we have time for. Now, if the judges would go to the deliberation room, I will meet you there.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, judges, and thank you, team. That was awesome.
Great job.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get into the next segment of our evening tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as we get into the next point, which is another exciting point, because I am very excited to be sharing with you today Passive Bolt and Kabir. So I met Kabir a couple of years ago, and they were actually one of the first startups that I got to meet here when I first started at Spark. But Kabir and his team, Kabir went through boot camp a few years ago, and I'm sure he'll talk about that. But it was with a very different idea. And what ended up coming out was something a little bit different than we had originally thought. And being CEO, sometimes you make executive decisions. While Kabir went through boot camp, he ended up going with a very different idea and a very different technology. But with what he did with boot camp is actually what's very important. Boot camp provides lots of resources, tools for people, not maybe for their first idea, but for maybe their second, third, however many ideas that you want to generate. And that's what's important and what we're trying to do here with boot camp. Now, Kabir is also went to CES last year. They actually won the CES, or one of the CES 2020 Innovation Awards for Smart Home category last November. So without further ado, I'll actually ask Kabir to go ahead and share his screen, introduce himself, and enjoy, everybody. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Margarita. That was a really, really nice picture. I like it. You'll have to share it with me. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here to, I guess, talk about my experience, what I learned from boot camp and how that helped us, as we launch Passive Bolt. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have a couple slides, nothing too painful. So just a little bit about me. I am the founder of Passive Bolt. Passive Bolt is a B2B focused company that basically supplies smart lock technology to home automation companies. So think your traditional home security company that's not offering home automation packages. So like an Xfinity or an ADT, companies like that. And then we sell them software services on the side, which allows us to generate recurring revenue for our company. And then just to give you a little bit more about myself specifically, I attended boot camp back in 2014, so about 6 years ago. And, I learned a few lessons that I would say are lifelong lessons that, were true then and remain true now, and that, we've applied to that first company I was working on out of graduate school. My background, I have an electrical engineering degree and then a master's in business from U of M. And after that second degree, I started a company called MyAlert, which was this, basically creating a t-shirt that is able to do a 12-lead EKG, just as a tool to be able to use at home. If you're having angina or detecting early onsets of things like, cardiac events. Since sold that company and moved on, spent some time in finance, investment banking in New York, in the automotive industry, where, I came up with my latest idea for a company, which is now Passive Bolt. Just a little bit about the product,
With Shepherd Lock, you can unlock your door by touching the deadbolt. Once inside, simply touch it again to lock the door behind you. We don't use fingerprints, so your identity is safe. Instead, we use virtual keys associated with your smartphone or key fob. Shepherd also boosts your home security by proactively freezing in place if anyone ever tries to tamper with your lock or break down your door. So you can rest easy knowing your family is protected, and our security extends beyond break-in attempts. We also make it easy to manage keys without hiding them under the mat. Easily create temporary keys for house guests, neighbors, or anyone else. decide when they can and can't access your home, and instantly cancel access anytime you wish. Shepherd also lets you monitor your home while you're away. Just open the app to view the status of your door, whether it's locked, unlocked, or ajar, and remotely lock or unlock it using the connection to the Wi-Fi bridge. You can even see a complete log of who has come and gone. Ready to get started? Installation takes less than 5 minutes. Just remove your existing deadbolt and install Shepherd Lock in the same spot with the same 2 screws. Shepherd works with your existing keys, so you won't need a locksmith. Once installed, download the Shepherd app to your Android or iOS device to instantly boost your...
Okay, so that was like, you know, a hack, like an easy way for me to tell you all about Shepherd Lock and, you know, in 60 seconds without having to go out and pull things out of memory. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about the product, but I'm not here to talk about Shepherd Lock or Passive Bolt too much. I sort of want to tell you, you know, how we got to where we got and some of the lessons that we derived from boot camp, as I was talking about. I would say some of the first lesson that I would say I've carried with me since boot camp so many years ago is what I just like to refer to as the power of customer insights. So this is an obvious one, understanding your customer's needs, but you know, it's something that you continuously learn the more companies you start, or if you are, you know, sticking with one concept and barely pivoting. At the very least, it's something that would help you continue to improve your product and continue to improve your services and offerings to your customers. So I'll say this is never set in stone, but I guess a few examples I could give here are, you know, the way I came up with Passive Bolt itself, which is, you know, working in automotive. I was technical lead for keyless entry technology that you would find in cars. So my team and I basically helped pioneer the technology that lets you walk up to your vehicle, touch your door handle, unlocks, you go in, push a button, you start, you go. We would call that passive entry in automotive. And it became quite popular, right? It started out as a, you know, luxury feature, basically on just a Mercedes C-Class type vehicles. And then before, you know, within the space of 2-3 years, it basically became standard by popular demand. So we went, you know, I think by the time I left Continental, our production lines were producing roughly about 120 million sensors annually. So, which is huge, and it's obviously a B2B approach, so it's in multiple brands of vehicles. So doing that, one thing that, you know, kept coming back, which again, had I perhaps not gone through boot camp, it wouldn't probably have stood out to me, is that, you know, we kept getting these, you know, feedback forms, you know, every time we try and study user experience and try and study how consumers, our customers, right, B2B to C, how they're experiencing our product and how we can make it better. And what, you know, became obvious quickly is a feedback that revolved around the concept of having to take my keys out to get into my home, but not having to do it for my vehicle. I love it that I could just walk up to my car and touch it. But, you know, I live in a townhouse, and when I get to my front door, I have to get those same keys out because they share the same keychain, right? And that's a breakdown in my user experience. You know, I wish you could just have, you know, it could have been the same, like seamless between the house and the home. I mean, between the house and the vehicle. So that started to play on me, and I was like, wow, there's potentially a need here. And then I, you know, looked around, and there is no really good marriage between automotive passive entry and residential passive entry. So I set out to solve that problem, which is to really figure out how to create a seamless experience between the vehicle and the home, and perhaps work to unify those keys so that you're able to, with, let's say, a virtual key or an electronic key, be able to marry the two access rights and be able to have access to both. Selectively, so that if you give somebody your car key, you're not necessarily giving, you know, them your home key, of course. But then the second thing is, again, as I went out to try and see, you know, I pitched this within Continental, developed it, and then I got, you know, I convinced Continental to devote some resources so we could try and see if we could come up with a proof of concept and also validate, you know, some level of product market fit. And in doing that, what I quickly learned is, obviously, it is slightly crowded as far as the B2C path was concerned, but I discovered a much bigger pain point, right? Which was that there are companies that are calling themselves now home automation companies. So these are traditionally home security companies that have completely reinvented themselves and are in the process of switching their models to just providing smart home products, smart home packages, a single user experience, right? And companies like that, they've managed to basically become system integrators that will take technology, hardware that is, and label it. So they'll get white label technology, label it and resell it, and then just, market themselves as the, company that's behind that user experience. That we show up to your house, our technician will install all these smart gadgets, you get a single app and you have a smart home. But what they didn't have is a smart lock. And that's because there is no white label supplier. So there's 3 main key players and none of them offered white label solutions. For one. For two, they need a complex backend integration. And you can't do that with an off-the-shelf lock because they don't offer SaaS services. So we figured that could be the low-hanging fruit for us. And then so we began conversations with companies like that. And we started designing the product with them, which is something I learned again from bootcamp. So back then, this was back in late 2018, early 2019. We had just this 3D printed, ugly prototype that got the job done. You could share keys, you could touch it, it locks and unlocks. It was very smooth, never broke, but just was not pleasant to look at. But it proved the concept that we could take an existing deadbolt, install our product, and then somehow you could just walk up to your door and touch it and unlock it, and you get that same automotive feature, right? And with some integration, let's say with Continental, you could imagine now you could basically, use the same key that allows you to get into your vehicle would allow you to get into your home, etc. So took it to customer meetings, went and met with companies like Xfinity, ADT, major household names, and put our ugly little prototype on the table and said, does this solve your problem? You just put your logo on it, we'll polish it, make it look nicer, of course. What do you think? And so we got a ton of feedback, positive and negative, but we just kept iterating based on the feedback we were receiving early on. So we essentially spent 2019 designing the solution with those companies, making sure that what was important to them was reflected in the end product, and making sure that the way we're designing our software services also addressed exactly what it is that they needed. And that design philosophy, that approach to, I guess, business development, I should say, not only won us a ton of household name as pilot customers. So think we signed a product partnership with like Xfinity. We're doing a pilot with them this fall, doing a pilot with ADT, pilot with Sky, which is the European version of Xfinity. So it's like a $40 billion company. We won innovation awards from Internet of Things to CES Innovation Award to Forbes, et cetera, et cetera. So really just taking this, very early prototype, working with customers to turn it into a product that they would want to buy, and then landing those OEMs as pilot customers, and now hoping to scale with them come 2020. And then the last thing I guess I'll mention here before the judges get back, one of the last things I should say here is that I really never realized prior to boot camp the power of listening to your customer. And so I'd say that's one lesson that stuck with me. Talking to consumers always teaches me how to speak to them. What I mean by that is essentially every time we sit down and talk to customers, we had to train ourselves to listen in a way where the way they rephrase our own technologies, the way they rephrase our value proposition, the way they talk about their problem, and it always gives us additional insight. It helps us essentially realize that a lot of the things we say are really not landing. We think we're explaining what we're doing, and we think we're doing it very well, but really we're not, because every time you explain your value proposition and somebody, asks you a question about it, and you thought you made it, obviously clear what it is that you did, I think that's a signal that you didn't really do as good of a job as you thought you did, and perhaps this is a learning opportunity and you should treat it as such. So then engage in that individual and rephrasing it as best as you can until they say it back to you and it sounds right. Then you remember how they say it back to you. And then you start to see over time if there's any kind of pattern that develops as to how people repeat it back to you when they finally got it, right? There's always that moment where the light bulb goes off. Oh, so this is what you do. I get it. That's a cue. And so I made it a habit to start collecting phrases like that over time, just to begin to understand, how to better say things, or what it is that I'm not saying that always gets me in trouble because people are just hung up on it and they stop listening right after a sentence or two. Just simple examples, things like I used to use the word electrode a lot. It doesn't really carry weight outside of automotive. I found out, you have to talk about touch sensors. Seems obvious now, but it wasn't obvious to me as an engineer, and having worked in automotive where we design a ton of electrodes, it just made sense to talk about electrodes, right? I heard a few technical words in one of the pitches too tonight. I'm not to single anybody out, but I would say things like that is just figuring out how to make it, easier to explain. We talked about jamming the deadbolt. That to me, for us, our technology does this thing where it's first of its kind patented technology from us, where if somebody's picking your deadbolt, it essentially automatically freezes the deadbolt and sounds an alarm, and then notifies the homeowner. But that I used to call jamming the deadbolt. Found out that doesn't work because it has a negative connotation. You're jamming my deadbolt? What? In retrospect, it makes sense, but it was really obvious. Listening to people, I heard them use the word freeze very often when they finally got it. And so it became part of our lexicon, right? So we talk about, automatically freezes your deadbolt as an example, or never taken care to mention that the technology does not collect fingerprints. Your existing deadbolt that's in your home today becomes touch activated with our technology. Your key still works, etc. But fail in to mention that it doesn't, which to us was obvious, that it doesn't collect fingerprints, always leads to confusion. So just something as simple as this, making sure to always say it converts your deadbolt into a touch activated device but still does not collect your fingerprints. Just being able to clarify that allows the listener to continue to listen to the rest of what I have to say, as opposed to being hung up on the point that, wait, so this is a fingerprint technology. And they think they got it figured out, but really it's my fault as, obviously the one trying to convey the value proposition. I failed to make it clear that it doesn't collect fingerprints. So things like that, just really how we talk to our customers can improve if we were to listen to the way they rephrase things back to us. With that, Margarita, I don't know if you're back, but if we have time for a couple questions, happy to answer them until the judges get ready to come back and announce the winner.
Yep. Actually, we have about 1 to 2 minutes for questions. If you would like to submit them into the chat box, you're welcome to. I'll let that keep going, but I definitely have started seeing certain things, and more from advice from boot camp. What has really stood out in your boot camp experience?
Okay. Yeah, I'll say it's phenomenal. What stood out to me, I'll say, is how many advisors in the ecosystem, how many people in the ecosystem are willing to not only be advisors, but to really engage and try and mentor and help young entrepreneurs and of any age really, to help entrepreneurs in our ecosystem, be successful, really help them hone into their, better understand how to, design and perfect their business model, the approach, customer discovery, etc. The selflessness with many of the people in the ecosystem is something that stood out with me. And I think anyone in this ecosystem is very lucky to have them. There's a dedicated group of many talented folks that are just devoted to help everybody else be successful. And that's always been, to me, been something that I've been thankful for, and that I hope, everybody else that, evolves in this ecosystem is also thankful for.
Got it. Thank you. As the comments have actually come in, some of the other bootcamp teams have actually shared their advice as well, as what have they learned from bootcamp. So I'm going to actually share those right now while I have everybody. So first, As far as boot camp, we have advice to entrepreneurs from the boot camp teams. Live and breathe a test and iterate mindset. And that is very valid, very true. Kabir has actually talked about that through many of his slides. Continuous customer discovery, even to a certain point where he's had to pivot. You will constantly learn from your customers. So constantly keep your eyes, your ears open, and just be open just in general. The other part, or another tip that actually came through from our bootcamp teams, identify all stakeholders and use that to frame customer discovery efforts. Yeah, that's actually another big point. And it's funny, Kabir, when I first met you, when we first had our business discussion, you were telling me very much about software and where you're going with your business. And it wasn't until you had some of the conversations actually with your customers that you actually had to pivot. And that's actually how you ended up having a hardware piece. So understanding the stakeholders as you learn about your startup and what other things might impact your idea for the good or for the worse, you still have to do customer discovery from them and learn from them. That could be a challenge, a hurdle that actually will make or break your startup, or it might be something that will really help leverage and grow your startup. But now you have the information at your fingertips to make that decision. So very good points here. Okay, so I think we have one more question, and then I'm going to actually switch into another point. Sorry, Kabir, I'm going to hold you for one more minute. What key points did you notice that told you it was time to leave the business? Oh, actually, I could help you with this one too.
That was addressed. That was from me, right, Margarita?
It's to all panelists, or I guess to all the boot camps yourself, and I'll open it up to anybody else that actually wants to comment on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can go first. It's nobody wants to give up. Nobody wants to call it quits. But there is wisdom in, obviously learning from failure and treating failure as a learning opportunity, I should say. So, I don't believe that, spending time building a company, arriving at a point where, let's say you're out of runway and out of traction points to justify additional funding, and you call it quits. That does not, to me, I would say anyone going through boot camp right now should not see it as a failure point, but a learning opportunity, because that just means that next company will be that much better off for it. So I'll say, consider it as a win, and that's it. I will say all the my previous startup definitely made me a better entrepreneur, and it made Passive Bolt be able to get, the traction points that we got this time around, compared to, let's say, when we decided to just have an early exit and sunset out of the first startup. So it's a win. It's a good way to frame it.
That's thank you for that tidbit, Kabir. It's a very important point, and I'll say too, there's not just really a necessarily defeat point, and it's not a shameful point. It's more about just growing from the information presented, and if it's worth your time, worth your energy. It doesn't mean that it's something bad though, because startups, even today, whether they're the most successful company or not, they're constantly pivoting given what is going on in our world. And the identification of what is going on is the most important point. Being open, customer discovery, constantly learning. So I don't think there's necessarily a point where you end. It's just more about what have you learned and you pivot, or are you just formally deciding, okay, this one's not, it's an ugly baby at this point. Let's go on to the next thing. But with bootcamp, you'll never forget your toolbox. And with every new idea that you see or a problem that you have identified, you can just keep going. And that's how we get into serial entrepreneurship. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and close up with Kabir. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your tips, and your advice. We appreciate you very much. Thank you. And I will also have Kabir's information as well as the other startups information towards the end of our program, just if anybody's curious. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the judges and the startups to come back. And while they do that, we're going to enter this next point in our program this evening. And that is, yes, today we will have first place winners and second place winners, but we wanted to make this extra special. And this is the first time we're actually doing this in boot camp. We are asking the crowd that's tuning in today to please vote for your favorite startup that presented today. And you can do that via poll. Down at the bottom of your screen, you will see a polling button. If you pull that up, you will be able to select your favorite of the 4 pitched presentations. The first ones are with Poisera, Chime, Elise Magnets, or Exoplex. It's up to you. And after we announce the first 2 winners, then I'll go ahead and announce who the crowd favorite, people's favorite is this evening. Okay, so while I let that kind of go, mull over, let me make sure everybody else that I need to have for this next segment is there. All right. Okay, I see you, Lee. You guys are back from deliberation, aren't you?
We are indeed. It was, you know, it's tough when there are 4 really good presentations.
Absolutely.
But, we managed to duke it out without too much blood and come to a decision. And you have those results, correct?
Yes, I do, and I'm excited. All right. So I'm going to glance over to my team and ask for the thumbs up. We're ready to fire on the next point. Awesome. All right. So without further ado, I am actually going to first announce who is in second place. Second place will, thank you very much, Mike. Michigan Angel Fund, there is a 10 grand convertible note via Michigan Angel Fund there. And Elise Magnet. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Not important. Go ahead.
I said, so second winner here, Elise Magnets. Now, I'm very curious. I didn't get to go to that deliberation room because I was here. Can some of the judges actually please share any of the feedback of how you guys actually came to this point?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Great.
Wonderful presentation, Elise Magnet. We really enjoyed hearing your pitch. It was captivating right from the beginning, and I came to understand, not having been familiar with your business, that you were really focused on making virtual tours come alive. I've since had the opportunity to check out your website as well, and so I'm seeing more of that coming live into action in front of me. We were as well impressed with your business model and your knowledge of property management companies and property managers. I appreciate the additional follow-up on the math about that 1.8 that has come forward in the chat room to me since I asked the question. And knowing that you understand the business model of incentivizing local teams as well, and that that's part of the deployment strategy, is actually really exciting. I think it was Raj in commenting on his T's and traction. We're also really impressed that you have 16 property management groups that have come on board already. So we know that there's a lot of competition that's been out there, but you've really kind of struck at the right time, I believe. And this is sounding like it's going to be an increasingly successful operation, both in terms of navigating the COVID-19 environment as well as into the future. And congratulations.
Yay, I know we don't get to clap too much, but oh, I'm so proud. So Elise Magnets takes second. Thank you very much. And Mike, I cut you off. Go ahead and say whatever comment you were going to say.
I was just going to clarify so Skip Sims doesn't kill me that it's coming from the pre-seed fund, not the Michigan Angel Fund. But good plug for Michigan Angel Fund.
Thank you. All right. So now this leaves the space of who takes first. And this is 25K convertible note. And Poisera, Mariana Carpola. And again, we will also ask feedback from the judges on this. Congratulations, Mariana.
So I'll go for Mariana. You know, I have to say thank you, Lindsay, and all of you guys for helping me use the 3 T's. So we judged Mariana and everybody with how they told the story, the tell, traction of their business, and the team. And I have to say that she had great delivery, amazing story, good pace, nice poise and articulation, and really she brought it all together to explain to us how well she was getting traction, how often her super users and her regular users were using the site, how many people she had on the site, and what was her market. So you know, it was a good flowing story for us. And in terms of the team, she is obviously experienced in the space in her customer acquisition, digital marketing, and as well as her other members who are tech savvy. So I felt it was a great story coming together. Well done.
Great. Thank you so much. And congratulations. All right. And I'm checking out this poll as we go. Were there any other comments from the judges that we wanted to share about the teams, why something interests them, or any other kind of just comment? Just wanted to make sure I go before we get into the crowd or people's favorite.
I'll just reiterate, sorry, Raj, you go, but what Lee said, I mean, I think it was a difficult decision. They were all really good pitches. Everybody, I thought, did a great job presenting. Everybody, I think, has a lot of success in front of them, and hard decision, but great job and congratulations.
Absolutely echo that, Mike. That was a good job, everyone. It was a hard decision.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right. If there's no more comments, I'm going to go ahead and get into our crowd favorite. And for our crowd favorite prize, we have actually got a special prize for the first time. Actually, Bodman has offered up $2K worth of legal services, and we're excited to have this as our new People's Choice Award prize. And without further ado, Exoplex, Daryl, you are the winner.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, congratulations. I will tell you a little bit more about that after this, so I'll be touching base. But thank you all. You guys did so well this evening on your pitches. I'm very excited for everybody's momentum and where they're going. Yes, and it's just it's great to see all of this kind of come to fruition after so many months, especially starting at the pandemic. Going from we were having boot camp in person to being virtual. It's really great to see everybody's progress and where we've come to the point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close up on tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the next few notes here. I'm trying to screen share. Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Okay. We got through that. All right, for those of you out there that wanted the connection information to those startups, I wanted to go ahead and just give you this opportunity. I'm going to hold it up for the next 5 seconds if you want to take a screenshot of it while you're there. And again, we were just very excited to have our teams present, but also have Kabir come and share his story, and also the ongoing momentum, what's going on with Passive Bolt. All right. So the next thing I also wanted to discuss was we have different cohorts and we do this twice a year. We are currently recruiting. So if you are a young innovator, you got an idea on the back of your beverage napkin, you thought of something during this bootcamp celebration event, please give me an email, holla, and we will let you know where we are at, because we are actively recruiting for more bootcamp teams for our next cohort. And then you can also send us info, or look through the Spark website. You can also find other places that if you're not able to capture this right now, you can send us information if you're interested. And we'll go ahead and get that process kind of going. We're going to be starting our next boot camp actually somewhere in November. And we're excited to roll that one out upcoming. The other thing I wanted to conclude before we end is that, again, Bootcamp Celebration is an event through the A2 Tech 360 event series. And this is just one of 16 of the events that we have going on. Tomorrow we have Women in Tech, we have Invest 360, the mobility. And of course, on Friday, you should definitely join us for Tech Track and Tech Talks. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening in our ecosystem. So please go check out a2tech360.com for the events that we have offering, and enjoy. All right, so without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude. Thank you everybody for your support, your love, your pitches, your ideas. And thank you so much, and have a great and safe night, evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us.